Hello, my little mathematicians. Today, we're going to be focusing on percent. Remember that percent is mainly, when we think of it, what we get on a test score, right? So if you think of it as the part that you got correct over the total number of problems equals percent over 100. So what I mean by that is when we're going through the percent unit, if you can remember part to whole equals percent over 100, then you'll be really far ahead of the game. So again, part to whole equals percent over 100. Or whole could even stand for total, because the total number of questions, and then you got part of them correct. And sometimes they give you the part and the whole, but you're missing the percent. That's mainly when we get a test score back. Like if you got a 19 out of 25, what percent is that? Well, you would go 19 divided by 25 in your calculator. You'd get a decimal, then you'd have to move the decimal over to get a percent. If you remember part to whole equals percent over 100, instead of having to remember to move the decimal and which way you move it, if you do it as percent over 100, set it equal to that, whatever you get in this place, you don't have to worry about moving the decimal. It'll be exactly that answer. But sometimes they give you the total number of questions in your percent and then ask you, okay, so what part of the test did you get right? How many did you score correct? Or they'll tell you, if you got this many correct and you got this percent, how many total were there? And then it's really confusing about what to do unless you fall back on using this proportion right here. And remember, a proportion is two ratios or fractions set equal to each other. And another one that is helpful is a lot of times they phrase them like this: 15 is 30% of what number, or 4% of what number is 25. They phrase them a little bit differently. And so then what's helpful is I'm going to adjust this just a little bit. I'm going to say part is kind of like is, and the total is kind of like of. Because if you think of it, your score that you get on a quiz is part of the total number of questions. So the is kind of like the part that you got right, and the of is like the total number of questions. So if it's something that's not in a word problem that's more exact and easy to figure out of what the part versus the total is, and if it's just phrased like this, you could think is over of equals percent over 100. So I'm going to fall back on this little proportion quite a bit, whether I'm given a problem like this or if I'm given a word problem. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first one. It says 50 is 40% of what number? So I'm going to set up my proportion for is over of equals percent over 100. And the easiest thing to do first is you know that this is always 100, regardless of the problem. It's only the part, whole, and percent that change, or is of and percent. But this is always 100. So I'm going to go ahead and put 100 here. And you know what? I could even do that for all of these. When I set up my proportion, I know that this is always going to be 100. Then think to yourself, what's the next easiest thing to find? The percent, because the percent always goes over 100. And it'll either be attached to a percent sign or it'll say what percent, like it'll have the word percent in it. I'm going to do number 1. And then I want you guys to press pause and you try to set up 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so let's do number 1 together. It says 40%. So that's my percent. I'm going to put that over 100. Then all I need to figure out is the is and the of. Circle the things that go together. So 50 is talking about the is. What's talking about the of? Right here. And it says what number. When you don't know what number it is, let's represent it as an X. Okay. Now I want you guys to try to set up 2 through 4. And once you think you have it set up, unpause. Now that you're back with us, Okay, the easiest thing to figure out is the percent, and that always goes over 100. So there's the percent. Let's put that over 100. There's the percent. Let's put that over 100. Okay, and then let's do our is's. Well, 15 is 25. Is 160. And then what's the of? Of what number? So we don't know. Of what number? We don't know again. Of what number? We don't know again. Now, this was just this quiz. Sometimes they give you different parts that are missing. So now that I have this set up, I can solve this using cross products. What I mean by cross products is the two numbers that are diagonally across from each other, I'm going to set them equal to each other. So 40 is across from the x. So I'm going to go 40 times x. Set that equal to the other two numbers that are diagonally across from each other, 50 and 100. You guys try to set up 2 through 4. Okay, now that you're back with us, because you pressed pause and then unpause, 30 is across from x. Set that equal to 15 is across from 100. 4 is across from x. 25 is across from 100. 80 is across from x. 160 is across from 100. So again, the two things that are diagonally across from each other, I multiply them and then set them equal to each other. Now that I have this, the thing that's attached to the x, I'm just going to kind of leave alone. I can't simplify that anymore, but I can simplify the right side. 50 times 100 is 5 with 1, 2, 3 zeros at the end. 1, 2, 3. So that's 5,000. Okay, leave the 30x alone for now. And then 15 times 100 is 1,500. 4 times x, bring down. 25 times 100 is 2,500. 80 times x, bring down. 160 times 100, well, 16 times 1 is 16, and you tack on 1, 2, 3 zeros. And remember, we can use a calculator for this section as well if you couldn't do those in your head. Now that we have these set up, this is saying 40 times something equals 5,000. 30 times something equals 1,500. 4 times something is 2,500. And 80 times something is 16,000. You're like, I don't know what to do with that. Okay, well, think of it. Let's make a little bit easier just so that you can think of what's happening here. What if I had 8x equals 72? And I'm like, 8 times something equals 72. Already, a lot of you guys are jumping out of your seat and you're like, oh, I know what x is. It's 9. Yeah. How did you figure that out? What you did is you took 72 and you divided it by 8, because 72 divided by 8 is 9. Whatever you do to one side, you got to do to the other. And the reason that that worked is because 8 divided by 8 is 1. So you have 1 times x, and 1 times x is just x. So essentially, I divided by the number that was in front of the x, and I did that on both sides. Because when I divide something by itself, it's 1, and then you have 1 times x, so x is by itself. And then when I divide it on the other side, I'm left with the answer to whatever 8 times this number is equal to 72. Okay, so I'm going to divide both sides by whatever is in front of x, just like I did in that example up here. So right here, I'm going to divide both sides by 40, because 40 divided by 40 is 1. Now you have 1x equals, and you would type into your calculator 5,000 divided by 40, and you would get 125. Okay, or if you weren't allowed a calculator, these zeros would cancel at the end because you're just essentially dividing by 10. And now you have 500 over 4, and that's a little bit easier to deal with. So x is 125. So 50 out of 125 is 40%. Okay, you guys try to solve the other ones. Okay, you pressed pause, you solved them, now you're pressed unpause and you're back with us. So I'm going to divide both sides by 30 because that's what was in front of x. Divide both sides by 4 because that's what was in front of x. Divide both sides by, you guessed it, 80. Okay, those cancel because 30 divided by 30 is 1. So you have 1x equals, you type that into your calculator and you get 50. Or if you weren't allowed a calculator, those zeros cancel and you have 150 divided by 3. A little bit easier to solve. You'd still get 50. Okay, 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1 times x is just x. 2,500 divided by 4 is 625. And 80 divided by 80 is 1. So 1 times x is x. 16,000 divided by 80 is 200. Okay. Then we want to always double check. If I was asked to solve for the percent, I would need to put a percent sign for my answer. I was solving for the of, so leave it alone. I was solving for the of, so just leave that alone. It was just 50. I was solving for the of part, so again, just leave it alone. I was solving for the of part again, so just leave it alone. But sometimes you are asked to solve for the percent, so then I would need to put a percent sign in my answer. Okay. Now let's take a look at some of these involving word problems. The first one says, Brooklyn picked out 25 toys at Target. Her mom said she would receive 16% of those toys she picked out as a Christmas present. How many toys will Brooklyn be receiving as a Christmas present? So the percent that we're dealing with, let's go ahead and put that on the right-hand side. We know that this is always 100, and then 16% is going to go on top of 100. Now, what is the percent talking about? It's talking about 16% of those toys she picked out as a Christmas present. Okay, so of the total toys she picked out, she's only going to be able to keep 16% of them. Okay. Do I know the total or the part? Well, it says Brooklyn picked out 25 toys at Target. Her mom said she could only keep 16% of those toys. So this is representing the total number of toys. And then she can only keep part of that, which makes sense because what child is going to get 25 toys for Christmas? That's a lot, right? So she's like, you can only keep a certain percentage of those. Okay, so pick out your favorites, and then Santa will pick out a few favorites from there. Okay, so now that I have this set up, let's do my cross products. I have x across from 100. Set that equal to 16 times 25. All right. Now that I have this, I just bring 100x down, and I can simplify this part, the right side, by multiplying it in my calculator. 16 times 25 is 400. Now I want to get x by itself, so I divide by the number in front of x, which was 100. 100 divided by itself is 1. 1 times x is x. 400 divided by 100 is 4. So those zeros canceled, those zeros canceled. 4 over 1 is just 4, which means this number was 4, which was representing the number of toys that she probably will actually get, okay, that she puts on her Christmas wish list to Santa. So 4 toys out of the total 25 that she picked out to put on her wish list. Also, instead of doing cross products, I could have done a shortcut, okay? Because 25 can go evenly into 100, right? Think to yourself, when you have this proportion set up, you could go 25 times what is 100? Well, 25 times 4 is 100. So then do you go 16 times 4? And that's where it gets tricky, because if you were to type into your calculator 16 times 4, you would get 64. And some people just write 64 as their answer and don't even think about it. How does that make any sense? How would you say she picks out 25 toys and she only gets to keep a small part of those, so she gets to keep 64 of them? What? That doesn't make any sense, right? So what helps you is, yes, you can do the shortcut way of 25 times 4 equals 100. However, you need to go towards the unknown. So this is where my unknown is right here. So I'm going to go towards that direction, which means I need to go towards this direction for this one as well. So how do you get from 100 to 25? I'm not multiplying by 4, I'm dividing by 4. So then do the same thing on top. Okay, I'm going to divide by 4 here. 16 divided by 4 is 4. So you get 4 toys. And you can use that same shortcut sometimes as well. I couldn't here, unfortunately. 40 can't go evenly into 50. But I could have gone here because I can go evenly from 15 to 30. So is it 15 times 2 or 30 divided by 2 though? So how I know which way to go for sure is I go towards the direction of my unknown. And you're going from 100 to X, which means you're going from 30 to 15. How do you get there? Well, 30 divided by 2 is 15. So 100 divided by 2 is 50, like we got when we did cross products. Okay, and then right here, I can go from 80 to 160, but is it 80 times 2 or 160 divided by 2? Which way do I go? Go towards your unknown. So then go towards your unknown for this one. And it's 80 times 2 to give me 160. So I'm going to go 100 times 2, which is 200, what I got when I did my cross products. So a lot of you guys are like, oh my gosh, that was so much easier. Why did I do the cross product way? Cross products always works. This little cool shortcut way only sometimes works. It didn't work for number 1 and 3. I would have had to have done cross products. So if you just don't want to think about it, you can always just do cross products. It'll always work. But if you want to double check to see if you can do the shortcut method first, and if it works, great. That's all the work you needed to do. All right, let's take a look at number 6. It says, Ryan saved $150 from his paycheck working at Golden Spoon. If there was 15% of his total paycheck, how much did he make in all? Okay, so I saw this is kind of like a part to whole. He only saved part of his total paycheck. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my proportion. Okay, the easiest part, I know this is 100, and let's look for that percent. This was 15% of his total paycheck. Okay, so the 15 over 100. Now I just need to think the is over of, or the part over whole. He saved 150 from his paycheck working at Golden Spoon. So is 150 representing the part that he saved, or is it representing the total amount that he made? It's representing the part that he saved. And then let's just kind of double check with what it's asking, because as of right now, I have this as the unknown. It says if this was 15% of his total paycheck, how much did he make in all? Yep. Okay. They even told me I'm solving for the total amount that he made. This is just a part that he saved of the total. Now that I have this, you could do the nice little shortcut because I can go from 15 to 150, but is it this way or this way? Go towards the direction of your unknown. So towards the direction of your unknown would be going that way. Okay, so 15 times what is 150 times 10. So 100 times 10 is 1,000. And I would be done. I would say he made 1,000 total dollars. So the shortcut is nice when it works. If you didn't see it, that's fine. You still could have done cross products. Okay, you would have gone 15 times X equals 150 times 100. And then 15x equals 150 times 100 is, well, 15 times 1 is 15. Tack on 1, 2, 3 zeros, so it's 15,000. To get x by itself, you always want to divide by whatever's in front of it, because anything divided by itself is 1, and 1 times x is just x. Now it's by itself. But whatever you do to one side, you need to do to the other. So 15,000 divided by 15 is 1,000. See, I got the same answer. How much total did he make? He made $1,000 and he only saved 150 of it, which makes sense. He saved a small amount. He only saved 15%. Okay, number 7 says Kennedy made $300 last summer. If she saved 20% of that money, how much money did she have saved? Okay, set up your proportion. I know that this is always 100. I'm going to look for my percent because that's the easiest one. It'll sometimes say what percent did she save, so then X would be up here. But I actually see a percent sign right here, so I'm going to put 20 because 20 over 100 is 20%. Now, where does this 300 go, on the top or bottom? Kennedy made 300 last summer. If she saved 20% of that total money, how much does she have saved? So what part of the total 300 did she save? And then think to yourself, can I do the shortcut for this one? I can, because I can go from 100 to 300. But is it going this way or this way? Is it times 3 or divided by 3? Go towards your unknown, then follow that same pattern. So it's 100 times 3 equals 300. So do 20 times 3 and you get 60, which means she only saved $60. Okay, yes, you could have done cross products. 100 times X equals 20 is across from 300. So 100X equals 2 times 3 is 6. Tack on 1, 2, 3 zeros. 1, 2, 3. 6,000. How do you get X by itself? I'm going to divide by the number in front of X, which is 100. Do the same thing to the other side. Those zeros cancel. Those zeros cancel. 60 over 1 is just 60 equals 100 divided by itself is 1. 1 times X is just X. Okay, regardless of how you did it, you got $60. Number 8 says Carson completed 60% of his math homework. Uh-oh, sounds like he's going to get a 0 because you have to attempt every problem. Just kidding. Okay, if he was assigned 20 problems, how many problems does he still have to do? Oh, there we go, because he still has to do all of them in order to get credit. Hint, 2 steps, find how many he did, then subtract to find how many he has left. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up my proportion first. I always know this is 100. Let's look for my percent. Carson completed 60%, so 60 over 100, of his math homework. If he was assigned 20 problems, how many problems does he still have to do? So he's assigned a total of 20 problems. I want to know what part, is this representing the part that he still has to do or the part that he's done? Well, let's read what the percent was talking about. It says Carson completed 60% of his math homework. So this is representing how many he completed when I solve this, right? 60% is talking about how many he completed. So let's go ahead and solve that. I can go from 20 to 100. So is it 20 times 5 or 100 divided by 5? Go towards your unknown. Towards your unknown. Follow the same direction. Okay, so 100 divided by 5 gives me 20. So 60 divided by 5 is 12. So is 12 my answer? Well, 12 is representing the number that he completed. It's asking how many does he still have to do? Well, if he has 20 assigned and he's already done 12 of them, subtract them to find how many he still has to do. He has 8 problems left because he's only completed 12 of them. Now, they wouldn't necessarily always give you that hint of the steps of what to do. But so always double check, what are they asking you and what does this represent? It'll tell you what the percent is representing. It says the percent is representing how many he completed, but we want to know how many he still has left. So after I find this, I just subtracted it from the total amount. All right. number 9 says 1% of what number is 11? All right, so we're back to kind of like how the top was dealing with it. A little bit easier. I'm still doing a proportion, but this time I could just think the easy is over of equals percent over 100. So I'm still going to put 100 here. Look for my percent. Aha, 1. Of what number? So the of is down here. We don't know what it is because it says what number. So let's represent it with an X. And then is 11. So my is 11. Oh, I can totally go from 1 to 11. Is it 11 divided by itself though, or is it 1 times 11? So is it dividing or timesing? Go towards your unknown. So follow the same pattern. It's 1 times 11. So then do 100 times 11 and you get 1100 or 1100. So 1100 is my answer there. Okay, which makes sense because it's only 1%. So it's not even close to being of the total amount. Okay, for my next one, I'm going to set up my proportion, put 100 here, and I want to do my percent. It's 20, so put that over 100. Is 14, so my is 14. Of what number? We don't know the of, so I'm going to represent that with an X. Oof, I can't do my shortcut this time. I don't know what 14 times what is 20. So I'm going to have to fall back on cross products. So 20 is across from X. 14 is across from 100. 14 times 100 is 1400. To get X by itself, you divide by whatever's in front of the X on both sides. Okay. 20 divided by itself is 1. So now you have 1x equals, those zeros can cancel. 140 divided by 2 is 70. Or you can just type it all into your calculator. Okay, so 14 of 70 is 20%. That sounds about right. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video for the front side just so that then this one isn't too long, and then we'll continue back on the back side. Okay, we're almost done. We're halfway done. If you want to go ahead and try it yourself, the back side first, and then check it with me in the video, that's perfectly fine.